If you don't know our organization, Transportation Choices Coalition is Washington State's nonprofit advocate for safe, sustainable, and equitable transportation. For 34 years, we've been a coalition of business, labor, transit agencies, transit riders, and elected leaders, all beating the drum for investments in transit and safe walks to transit. We do a lot of work in the state legislature. We organize transit riders across the state, but we're most known for running and winning transit ballot measure campaigns. In 1996, 2008, and 2016, we led the successful Sound Transit ballot measure campaigns that extended light rail across this region. The recent opening of the Cross Lake connection shows that we are a region that can envision big things and get them done. We're going to prove that again with Sound Transit 3. As we'll hear later this evening, Sound Transit is required to have an affordable 25-year system plan. That means they need to build, operate, and finance the entire light rail, commuter rail, and bus system affordably over 25 years. They need to have the revenues to meet their expenses. Late last year, we found out that those expenses have increased. What was a $150 billion 25-year system plan has risen by about 20%. That's $34.5 billion to around $184 billion. That is a big number, but it's investment in something that we all want. It's investment in transit, an investment in our communities. And Transportation Choices Coalition is working with a coalition of advocates from across the 3 county regions to let the board know that this region wants light rail. And that campaign is called the Build the Damn Trains campaign. I'm going to give a huge, all right. This is this room for this message, and I'd love to see some of those shirts out there. This is a broad alliance of business, labor, environmental advocates, and transit advocates from across the county, across the 3 county region. And we are united around a simple message that we are delivering to the board members. Those messages are 3 things. First, don't cancel light rail lines, keep light rail projects moving, and remember that we're all in this together as one region. Those are the values that bring so many of us here in the room together today and bring this broad coalition together. And we're delivering that message to the Sound Transit Board. The Sound Transit Board is 18 people who are going to find us a path forward through the Enterprise Initiative. They are people who want light rail and have championed this and made the case for it at the ballot and in their communities. These are people who want light rail, and they didn't ask for the challenging approaches that Sound Transit staff provided them. But these are going to be the 18 leaders who find us a path forward. And we're thrilled to have 4 of those leaders up here with us tonight. We're joined by King County Executive Girmay Zahilay, Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, King County Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda, and Seattle City Councilmember Dan Strauss. Please give them a huge round of applause. They have been spending a lot of time over the last few months talking about Sound Transit, and they've been gracious to come here and spend their time with us to share how they're thinking about the Enterprise Initiative, how they want to solve this challenge, and put forth what is helpful to hear from the public at this challenging moment. I also want to recognize the other elected officials that we have in the room. There were a lot of you out there, but I believe I saw King County Councilmember Jorge Barron joining us. Give him a round of applause, a transit champion. Who else am I missing? Can I get the elected officials to raise their hands if there's anyone else other than the 4 that we have at the front of the room? All right. Well, once again, thank you all so much for being here. And I want to highlight that this coming Thursday, May 7th at 10:30 is going to be a key Sound Transit Board meeting. It's going to be the executive committee meeting where the Sound Transit Board is going to dive into another approach that is informed by the feedback that they've been getting from the public over the last month since their board retreat. That is a moment where they, by law, have to listen to you deliver your comments. So please, we're hoping to see a huge turnout of folks there at that board meeting to share your message about how important light rail is to your community. But we're really gracious for these board members to be spending a beautiful evening here inside with us tonight. So before I begin, I'm going to go over just a few ground rules. Tonight, we're going to have a moderated conversation with our panelists, but before that, we're going to be joined by Sound Transit's Deputy Executive Director of Enterprise Planning, Alex Krieg, who's going to level set for us and let us know what is the Enterprise Initiative and what challenge the board is tackling. We're going to have that moderated panel discussion, and then we're going to be taking questions from the audience through note cards. Thank you to everyone who submitted their questions on the RSVP link online. We have those questions up and ready. We're going to dive into those at the beginning. And we're handing out note cards at the entrance. If you did not get one, please make sure to get one or raise your hand, and TCC staff will come make sure you get a note card. We have a few asks for those questions on those note cards. First, please write just one question on that note card. 2, please write it legibly. And when we get through some of our moderated questions first, raise your cards up, and we'll have Transportation Choices Coalition staff come around, pick those up, and we'll get them up to our panelists at the front. And lastly, we know this is a popular topic. This is a full room. There's still more people coming in from the outside. We're not going to get to everyone's questions. We're going to try and have about 30 to 40 minutes of questions. We're going to get to as many as we can, but we're not going to be able to get to all of them. So thank you all so much for being here. And now I'm thrilled to welcome up the most knowledgeable person in this entire region on the Enterprise Initiative, the Deputy Executive Director of Enterprise Planning at Sound Transit, Alex Krieg. Alex.
Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Alex Krieg. I promise you I'm not that knowledgeable, but I am here to give you an overview of this thing that we call the Enterprise Initiative. Thank you, Holden. Thank you, Kirk, for the kind words. Once this video source becomes present. So the first slide is a map of the Sound Transit District, and it makes the point that the Sound Transit District, which is made up of the urbanized areas of King, Pierce, and Snohomish County, represents 40% of the state's population, obviously a large share, and that the mission of Sound Transit is to deliver high-capacity transit to as many people in that district as possible. Then there is a slide that shows the fact that voters have approved 3 ballot initiatives. The first in 1996, called Sound Move, which connected light rail from Westlake Station to the SeaTac Airport. It also made some investments throughout the district, including the T-line down in Tacoma, some Sounder investments, and ST Express investments. Look at that. Yeah. Always go with the backup laptop, you know what I'm saying? Look, that was the slide. Okay, this was the other slide I was talking about. So ST2 passed by the voters in 2008, made a bunch of investments in Link Light Rail, which we have been opening over the past several years, most recently about a month ago with the Cross Lake connection, including a station in the Judkins Park neighborhood of Seattle, also bringing 4- and 5-minute headways throughout the day on light rail between International District Chinatown Station and Linwood. If you haven't used it, it's great. We also expanded Sounder south to South Tacoma and Lakewood. And then in 2016, ST3 passed, bringing investment in Link to Ballard, West Seattle, completing the spine to Everett and Tacoma, new light rail connections in the East King County, including what's already open to downtown Redmond, as well as to Federal Way, and a project in Tacoma extending the T-line project. In addition to 3 new lines of Stride Bus Rapid Transit that will also serve the city of Seattle up on 145th. The next slide would have been our nice and elaborate map of the voter-approved system that ST3 will bring to the region. So 5 Link light rail lines, the 1 through 4 line, the T line in Tacoma, 116 miles of track with 83 stations, Sounder trains north and south, and BRT investments as well. That is all background in service to this thing that we call the Enterprise Initiative. That is our effort to ensure that we can deliver the greatest benefits of ST3 within available financial capacity. The agency has faced program affordability challenges in the past. Typically, when we've faced these challenges, we've really only focused on addressing capital program scope or schedule. This time we're trying to be more comprehensive and look at all parts of the agency, hence the word enterprise. So thinking about policy choices we can make, operational decisions we can make, finance choices we can make as well. If we don't act, we will have an unaffordable ST3 program, but the board does have the tools and resources necessary to address these challenges. We really had a sense that the agency was facing program affordability challenges beginning in late 2024 with a few set of leading indicators, including some cost growth we were seeing on the West Seattle Link Extension project. The West Seattle Link Extension project is the light rail extension in ST3 that is furthest along in its project development life cycle. When the board selected the project to be built, we also disclosed information about something like 70% cost growth on that project. That led the board to act. They did a couple of things. One thing that they did was they directed staff to begin a comprehensive effort to find capital program cost savings across the program. They also directed staff to update cost estimates on all of our other major light rail extensions in recognition of the fact that what we were seeing in West Seattle was likely to be present in our other projects. Also in late 2024, we had opened the Linwood Link extension. A few months before, we had opened the starter line in East King County. Shortly thereafter, we opened more on the east side and down to Federal Way. As we've expanded, it's been great, but we've also seen some challenges in that expansion, particularly in service reliability and the resilience of the service we're providing. That has improved in the recent past, but it did indicate that we were possibly going to see some cost risk there. And then just generally, right now, there's a lot of uncertainty in the regional and national and global economies, a lot of cost growth post-COVID, but also a lot of changed mobility behaviors following the COVID-19 pandemic. And this can give us an opportunity to think differently about the investments identified in ST3 passed in 2016. So these were things informing some of the risks that we saw, but also the approach that we wanted to take looking at this challenge comprehensively. In August of last year, we were able to quantify the challenge. You've heard probably the number $34.5 billion in either cost savings or new funding that we need to fully fund the ST3 program. It is a very large number. It is approximately 20 to 25% of our overall capacity. A lot of that cost growth was in our capital program, reflecting, again, that post-COVID inflationary environment. A stat that the board chair of Sound Transit loves to give is between 2000 and 2020, we saw about 70% inflation in transportation construction, and between 2020 and 2026, we also saw about 70% inflation, and that explains a lot of what we're seeing here. There were also some cost pressures related to our ability to deliver service and transit operations. We have seen some marginal improvement on the sort of revenue and financing side, and I think a key point is we still have robust resources to deliver a lot of the investments in ST3. The board has been very engaged. In August, they adopted a motion that established principles to guide the work of the Enterprise Initiative that are listed here, including advancing regional connectivity, really thinking about the population and job centers served by the investments, supporting future growth, making sure those investments align where people are today and where we think they will be in the future, prioritizing the passenger experience, which is, again, really about delivering reliable service, making sure that the system overall is dependable, and then protecting public investments with fiscal integrity. In this case, I think it's really important that as staff that we bring to the board the trade-offs that they are going to face in making a decision of this scale. Again, the board's been super engaged, most recently at a retreat in mid-March in the city of Tacoma. This is actually the third retreat that they have had since the Enterprise Initiative kicked off about a year ago. They directed us to bring forward plausible, affordable approaches to deliver the ST3 capital program. I know that those approaches, especially in the North King sub-area in the city of Seattle, were not popular. And I appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate the energy that people are bringing to this discussion. The purpose was not to have these be answers, but really to be provoking discussion and engaging in the policy questions surfaced by them. What we also did at that retreat was bring the board information about other opportunities to save costs and expand financial capacity across the different work streams that we have set out for this enterprise initiative. That includes policy and planning, that includes transit operations, that includes finance, because again, it's I think a core objective of the board is to deliver as much of the capital program as possible, and so to look at these other domains to find either cost savings or additional resources. We received a lot of great feedback from the board to help advance towards an updated ST3 system plan, which will be presented and discussed at Thursday's executive committee meeting. What did we hear from that board retreat? We did hear a shared commitment to delivering on the regional promise of ST3, of connecting centers, of ensuring that all parts of the region are served. Generally speaking, we heard a lot of support for advancing light rail investments over other investments like Sounder or like some of the parking investments identified in ST3. We heard a lot of support for keeping the projects that are actively underway in either planning or design, like the West Seattle project, like the Graham Street infill station project, moving forward. Yeah, shout out. Because that gives us a chance to find more cost savings and also to ensure that we have a better handle on the cost risks identified. There are a few projects that we haven't really started any kind of planning work on. I think we definitely heard interest that beginning any sort of planning work would be beneficial just to understand both the needs of those communities as well as what we might be able to either save in those corridors or consider to do differently. And we are, the board in particular, are going to have to make some hard choices about what we can afford right now, and understanding the pathway for projects that may be deferred, how they get back into that affordable part of the plan. And so this is new. This is a new slide for these. This shows basically kind of the problem that we're trying to solve. We have a lot of capacity to deliver investments and still a lot of opportunities to fund the full system plan. I know the board is going to take some action to increase as much capacity as they can, but they are just one special purpose government in the state of Washington. There's a lot of opportunity in Olympia, in the other Washington, and in working with in partnership with our local jurisdictions, with WashDOT, with other governments to figure out how to deliver the full program, some of which is listed here. And that is all that I have. I want to thank you for your attention and energy in support of this effort. And I don't know where, oh, there's Kirk. Back to you.
Alex, thank you so much. You don't get away that easy tonight. We're going to ask you to come up and sit with us. But we have been hosting these town halls across the region, and we've had hundreds of folks turn out in Everett, in Tacoma, on the east side. And I'm thrilled to see a packed house in here. Take a look around. We have 200 people here tonight to talk about light rail. So thrilled to have this conversation in the place that loves transit, the city of Seattle. So I'm thrilled to welcome up 4 board members for tonight's panel conversation. I'm thrilled to welcome up King County Executive Girmay Zahilay. We're also joined by the Mayor of Seattle, Mayor Katie Wilson. We're joined by King County Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda. And we're joined by City of Seattle Councilmember Dan Strauss. All right. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. And also, there's one chair open for you here, Alex. Come on up and join us. All right, Tess, can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for that presentation, Alex. For our first question, we really want to dive into the history of the last 2 years in this region. In the last 2 years, Sound Transit has opened light rail extensions to Linwood, to Federal Way. They opened a 2-line starter line, and just a little over a month ago, they opened the Cross Lake Connection, which finally brought together the entire region and completed Sound Transit 2. It's a big moment for this region. So I want to pose this to each of you. What does this moment mean for our region, and what does this show our region is capable of delivering?
You want to start?
Mayor Wilson.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Love being here to talk about light rail. So it's been really exciting the last couple years, and I was really excited to join on opening day at the Cross Lake Connection. I really think that the last couple years have shown us that we can do hard things, right? We can do innovative things. We can do things that require lots of time and lots of struggle against obstacles, and we can make it over the finish line. The vision for the Cross Lake Connection originated like 50 years ago, and thanks to the tenacity and resilience of so many partners in this region, we made it happen. First light rail on a floating bridge. That's pretty amazing. And I think another thing that the last couple of years have shown is if you build it, they will come, right? It was so amazing seeing the size of the crowds on opening day. People were lined up for hours just to ride the train across the lake. There was a No Kings rally the same day, and people were seeing the light rail crowds and were like, oh, is this the No Kings rally? So it was just really amazing to see that enthusiasm for transit. So, I mean, despite the challenges that we're facing right now with the with our funding gap, I'm actually really hopeful, because I think like rooms like this one give me hope, because I can see the excitement for transit, the support for transit, and I'm convinced that we have the right people at the table to make this thing work.
It's incredibly inspiring to watch the connection get connected by rail. You know, when I look at, we were able to open a light rail station in Snohomish County, which is a really big deal. We've got to get down to Pierce County next. I'll just share a story. My grandma lived in Redmond. My mom grew up out there. And in 2009, 2010, I said, Grandma, one day I'm going to be riding light rail out to see you. She said, oh, I'll be dead by then. And unfortunately, she was. But I love you, Grandma Joe. And, you know, but there's still that connection that I get to ride the light rail out, and you know, it's in view of the house that my mom grew up in, right? That I go to Northgate, it's the closest station, it's the most accessible station to me, and I get that one-seat ride out to the town that my mom grew up in, right? That feels so far away when there's congestion on 520. It feels so far away on those Thanksgiving days where the bridge closes down, right? But now it feels so much closer because I have a one-seat ride. And, you know, I never thought I'd be somebody that would take the train to the suburbs to go out for dinner, but that's what the connection up to Snohomish County has created for me, is I've gone out to the suburbs for dinner using the train. So it does go both ways.
That the last couple of years show that we're an amazing region that can do amazing things, things that no other society in human history has ever done, as the mayor pointed out. And so I think we need to build these damn trains. I think we need to truly show that we can accomplish really hard things. And I think that these last couple of years show what our values are. And our values are a region that's committed to the environment, to mobility, to economic opportunity, and to showing up for each other. When I look around this room, I just see all kinds of people from every single corner of our 3-county mega region showing up for each other, showing up for the type of society that we want to leave behind for our children and their children's children. So thank you all for your commitment. Thank you, TCC, for hosting us today. Thank you to our colleagues for being here as well.
I'm glad for that. Well, good evening. Thank you so much for hosting us. I'm happy to be here and so happy to have been part of the celebration for the crossing across the pond to the other side, and then to actually have the opportunity to write it a week and a half later, where we saw our community come out in full force on a beautiful Sunday or sunny day, and then they showed up even when it was raining, because this is now the reliable way to get to work. I'm gonna talk about West Seattle since that sign's up. To make the point of why this is so important, right? It's not just about getting people back and to and from work and places of employment. This is about making sure that people have access to the amenities they need. On a Sunday, I had a health appointment scheduled at Kaiser in Bellevue because it was the only place I could get a screening that I needed. It was in the afternoon, and I was gonna pick up my kiddo from her dance class in West Seattle. And we were on our way there, picked her up at dance class, and they said she had a tumble. She might need to get her neck checked out. I was like, we're actually on our way to Kaiser. And so we were able to take her to the urgent care riding light rail, and everything was fine. She did a little somersault without bending her neck enough. But she was the one who wanted to go to the doctor, and we were able to get to this amenity, a health care clinic that was needed by using light rail. Now, it will be awesome when we can get on light rail in West Seattle and make that connection and get all the way to the east side. But it was really great being able to take the H line downtown, get on light rail, and get out there on time, even actually early for my appointment, and she got in right away, and everything was great. And to the mayor's point, they said it couldn't be done. They said multiple hurdles were gonna be in the way, and yet we built the train, it's connected, it's running, and it's connecting communities now. So let's keep doing it.
Let's go. I'm so glad everyone was okay. You four as board members have to balance dual responsibilities, one of fiscal responsibility and the other to deliver on the vision that voters approved. I'm curious, how do you balance protecting that vision while working within very real fiscal constraints? Anyone want to take that first?
Sure. I'm gonna jump in. Okay.
Do it.
So there is the real constraint of having to have a balanced, 20-year fiscal outlook. But that the reality is doesn't apply to most of our jurisdictions. Most of us look at a capital improvement project watch list over a 6-year period. You go to the state legislature and they have a capital budget that looks out over a 6-year period. I think if we were having a conversation about a 6-year period, all of the lines that we want to see built would be on that 6-year plan. And yet we're restrained by this 20-year plan, which I think we can probably work on some amendments to fix in the near future. I also think as the chair and the board considers the proposal in front of us, we know that we have these legal restraints to look at a balanced plan over this 20-year period, but really our message must be yes and. Yes, we are going to build all of these lines. Yes, we are going to create the infill stations. Yes, we're going to create the spine. And yes, we are going to make sure that the extensions that were committed here in Sound Transit in Seattle are committed to, and that we know we can do this if we have additional revenue. So yes, we're going to do it, and we need the financing tools to be able to make it possible. You actually saw a slide from Alex that showed what some of those financing tools are. We have them at our disposal, and we should be deploying them right now to make this pencil. That is the rental car tax. That's using debt capacity that Sound Transit has. Frankly, that's looking at other jurisdictions around this region to see what other debt capacity we might be able to lend. And then it is going to Olympia with a clear plan, showing what the delta in terms of dollars is to the state legislature, and asking with clarity what the 75-year bond bill can fund, and ask them to pass that next year. And finally, it is saying yes to all of these lines, and when we say yes as a board, an advanced design, we will see additional cost savings, like the $2.6 billion with a B that was shaved off of West Seattle in just a 6-month period, thanks to the board's authorization to find additional cost savings. So it's yes and, yes, build all the lines, yes, build the infill station, and let's commit to using those financing tools to make it possible.
So I will say yes and to that, right? Which is, you know, in the not so distant past, we had realignment in 2021 that only used one of the levers, which was to reduce the capital scope of the program. And what I'm heartened by with the enterprise initiative is that we are looking at our planning, we're looking at our financial tools, we're looking at our operations, as well as our capital scope. And it is also important that we fully use those 3 other levers before we start reducing the capital scope. To Councilmember Mosqueda's point, if we were operating with slightly different variables, 6 years instead of 20, we would still be in a good financial situation. We have good parameters at Sound Transit that say we understand that there's a funding gap in a decade from now. And it's really good for us to be here having this conversation about what that problem is on the horizon so that we can save it today. But where my concern is right now is that we are cutting things off the map before we've fully utilized all of these other tools.
I agree with everything I've heard, that the question is not whether we build the trains. The only question in front of us is how. It's not whether we build, it's how we build. And to me, that means holding those 2 ideas that you said, that we're going to advance all of the projects and we're going to do it in a fiscally responsible way. And advancing all the projects means absolutely connecting our 3-county mega region by completing the spine. It means building West Seattle, and building West Seattle, the fiscal responsibility there means building it as soon as possible, because we know that every day of delay adds millions of dollars of additional costs. Fiscally responsible for Ballard means completing the design so we can identify all of the cost savings that are needed to complete that project. In the same way that Councilmember Mosqueda described, Sound Transit was able to identify a lot of cost savings with West Seattle because it's a shovel-ready project, because all of that design and scoping had already been completed. We need to do the same thing with Ballard as soon as possible so we can get to Market Street as soon as possible. It means building both of those infill stations. I know my friends from Graham Street and Boeing Access Road are here. Absolutely. It means making sure that we're continuing to complete the design also for the 4-line out in Issaquah and South Kirkland. We need to do all of it. We need to advance all of these projects, and then we need to leave no stone unturned in terms of finding the financing, finding the partnerships, advocating to Olympia. And again, when we advocate to Olympia, we all have to come as a unified front, right? We can't be parochial. We can't be this corner of King County, that corner of Pierce. We all have to come together, and that's what it looks like to be committed to that vision that we have, advancing all the projects and making sure that we find the money to do so.
Okay, so I'm just going to add my voice to the choir here. So I started my organizing career here in Seattle as an organizer and advocate for public transit. And I was one among thousands of people, including many people in this room here, who pushed to get ST3 passed. And now as mayor, I'm committed to delivering on that vision. Yes. So what does that mean for us here in North King? First of all, it means I want to get us started on building West Seattle this year. This is a shovel-ready project. It's a shovel-ready project, and we cannot risk losing momentum. It is important that we get those shovels in the ground, that we begin to deliver on that project, on those stations, so that people can really see that we are moving forward, because that is what is going to just increase the faith of the public in this agency's ability to deliver, and is going to build on the momentum for us to get whatever other tools we need in order to complete the whole thing. It also means that we move Ballard forward, and we do not stop until we get to Market Street. I want the FTA to release the DEIS that is now 2 years late, so that we can keep advancing toward a final design. We can find those cost savings in Ballard just like we did in West Seattle, and we can get a shovel-ready plan ready to build all the way to Market Street in the next 3 years. The plan, not the building, but we'll get there. So I am committed, and I think all of us up here are committed to getting construction started on Ballard as soon as possible. And it means that we deliver Graham Street to the Rainier Valley, and end their 3-decade wait for that station. And all of this does not work if we are pitting our region against the other regions. I'm also committed to delivering for the whole region. I want to see us finish that spine and make those connections all the way from Everett to Tacoma. And we know that we have work to do to make all of that possible. So I think it is very important that we understand that the enterprise initiative, the quote-unquote plan that we are going to be voting on as a board, that is not an expression of what we are going to build. That is just a starting point. And that is what is going to allow us to do that planning, to find those cost savings, to go to Olympia, get our bond authority, to get whatever new financing we need, and to build the damn trains.
If you don't have a t-shirt yet, we need to get you all one. So, Councilmember Mosqueda, I believe the mayor might have stolen your thunder on this a little bit, but West Seattle Link just passed a huge milestone with a wonky term. It has a record of decision. And we've seen at the 2 town halls that you've hosted in West Seattle that Sound Transit has reduced the cost on that project through creative engineering. Can you just share what these milestones mean for West Seattle?
Well, let's see. First of all, as you can tell, there's no turf, there's no stealing. We're all in this together, and I think that's the point of these forums, to show people that we want the connection across our 3 counties, and we want to continue to deliver lines, that we don't want things to be in a category of unaffordable or deferred. We want them to be on the list, and we're committed to doing so. So I think how we talk about it and recognizing that there is work to do on the financing tools, absolutely, but the commitment, the vision, the values to making sure that we carry through, that needs to be the takeaway at the end of the month. So I'm really optimistic. If you look at West Seattle, and again, I give credit to my colleagues who've been on the Sound Transit Board longer than I have. I came in 3.5 months ago, but for about 3.5 years, we've been asking, we must be able to do something. We must be able to deliver out to West Seattle. We have workers out there. We have density in terms of renters and workers, and desire to leave cars at home and get connected to the rest of the community, as well as people who want to come out to West Seattle. And when the board authorized the staff to go forth and find additional cost savings by advancing design, they shaved $2.6 billion off of the cost. Again, they did this by deciding to tunnel underneath from Delridge up to the junction. And if you've been there before, you'll be happy to know that the vast majority of houses and businesses will be preserved by being able to tunnel. We're saving businesses and homes, maintaining ridership, and delivering sound transit to West Seattle. Now, I think that that's part of the vision of what we want to see accomplished in places like Ballard, in places like Issaquah, in places across the region that want to see additional cost savings and ultimately ridership maintained and trains delivered. And so when we think about what is possible in West Seattle, folks, it will mean that if the board authorizes the go-ahead here, we literally, as the mayor said, can have shovels in the ground in 90 days. That means projects can get underway. That means folks can start planning. That means businesses can have clarity. And just a small point to add to this, because I know Councilmember Strauss and I are of the same mind of this, And as we authorize, we need to be supporting small businesses to stay in place as long as possible, to prevent areas from becoming ghost towns, to offer things like protective rent, to keep people there as long as possible. And I'm going to keep working to see if we can change our laws to then have right of first opportunity to come back to transit-oriented development, to the stations, to be able to serve coffee and maybe your afternoon, evening beer, and maybe get your kiddos music lessons and be able to have a little concert venue in the places that we're creating, and childcare and housing. That's what we ought to be doing to preserve the small business support and also to be able to deliver light rail. So I think the vision of what is possible is really coming true in West Seattle if we're able to deliver the line as staff has realigned it.
Yeah. Councilmember Strauss, you are popularly known as the mayor of Ballard. You are a champion for this neighborhood at every corner. But when we saw from the 3 alternatives that were proposed at the board retreat, none of them got the line to Ballard. What does that mean for the neighborhood, and how are you going to get Ballard back on the map?
Oh, it's bad. It's really bad, and frankly, as politely as I can put it, it's unacceptable. Ballard has increased its zoning by, when we go through the comp plan, including the regional center designation, including the map zoning changes, by the time we get through comp plan, we will have increased zoning in Ballard 4 times since Sound Transit 3 has passed. And thank you for recognizing my mayorship, but I'm also the mayor of Magnolia, Fremont, Finney, Green Lake, Greenwood, Crown Hill, many other micro neighborhoods. And I think what this whole conversation is lacking for me is that we are talking about reductions, not expansions. We need to be talking real about ST4, because when those tunnel boring machines come out of the ground in West Seattle and at Market Street, it's exponentially more costly to get them back in the ground and keep moving. When I'm looking at Ballard, I'm looking at going up to Crown Hill, going through Greenwood, getting back to Northgate. I'm not looking at Seattle Center, right? I'm looking at the 147,000 daily reasons that Ballard Link Extension needs to be built. I'm looking at, Sound Transit did not provide an approach that maximized ridership. If they had, they would be looking at the dollar per rider figure that the Ballard Link Extension provides. I'm looking at the fact that we would be the only metropolitan regional center in the Sound Transit zone that would not be connected by Link Light Rail. This is understanding that we have to get to Everett and Tacoma. So this is bad. What I'm looking for this week is 100% design and a date for construction to Ballard, and that's a base minimum. Anything less than a date certain and 100% design is a loss. If we were able to go further to Smith Cove, to Dravis, that's when we're getting into counts of wins in the situation. Because we have to look at this as a total region. We have to get to Snohomish. We have to get to Everett. We have to get to Tacoma. And we can't leave the only urban regional center unconnected by Sound Transit. And so that's the last thing that I'll say is that what I'm heartened by with all of the expansions is that each of the station's ridership numbers are way higher than projected. This is a really good thing. And so when I say that there's 147,000 daily reasons to get to Ballard, I know that number is going to be double or triple.
Mayor Wilson, my prop for this question just left the room. As the beautiful sign that said Graham over there, I know we still have some folks in the room, advocates there. Communities along the Rainier Valley and the Martin Luther King Jr. corridor have been waiting a long time for the promised investments like Graham Street. Seattleites have voted for these in 2015 and 2016 through the Move Seattle Levy and Sound Transit 3. Where do you stand on delivering for those riders?
Yeah, as I already said, I'm fully committed to making sure that we deliver the Graham Street station. It is long overdue, and really appreciate all of the folks organizing town hall and rally next week. And to me, this means that we need, like Ballard, we need a commitment to get to final design like ASAP, so that we can begin to find those cost savings and understand what it's really going to cost. And then, in my capacity as mayor, right, the city is going to be a full partner in figuring out how we can get whatever, if additional revenue is needed to what's in SD3 to make sure that we secure that and that we build that station as fast as possible.
Executive Zahilay, you are the only person on this panel who represents more than one sub-area. You represent the East King County sub-area and the South King County sub-area. How do you balance the priorities of Seattle along with the entire county?
My cup runneth over with opportunities, so it's really great. As county executive, I represent 39 different cities, 2.3 million people. I appoint more than a majority of the Sound Transit board members, 10 of the 18 seats. And so absolutely, my commitment is to the region, not just the King County region, but the 3-county mega region, and making sure we have a strong regional system where you can hop on a train and get from anywhere. And of course, we have our King County Metro partners who can add those additional mobility efforts beyond rail as well. We have been hosting listening sessions and work sessions with the different caucuses of North sub-area, South sub-area, East sub-area, working with the board members who represent each of those regions. And there is a lot of commitment, a lot of alignment, a lot of stuff to work through. We're going to all of the different town halls around the region. We're here in Seattle. We're going to be at the Graham Street event on Tuesday. We're going to be at the South King County event in a couple of weeks here to talk about Boeing Access Road as well. And so I feel committed to the whole region. I'm going to work with all of our amazing colleagues and our community members. You all are the ones who are really inspiring us to work together on this and not just think about our own individual communities. I love to see the fact that Graham Street community is working alongside the Boeing Access Road community. You guys are working in partnership. That's really inspiring. I love to see what TCC is doing. You could easily just host this town hall in Seattle and capture a lot of people, especially because the North sub area is facing the majority of the financial challenges, but you're hosting them in East King County and South King County. So that type of regionalism is what we really need to create the best possible transit system, and I want to thank you all for doing that work.
You're your favorite subject.
You're my favorite.
All right, we've got about 2 more moderated questions. So if you have a question on a note card, please make sure you raise it up. We have our Transportation Choices Coalition staff in their Build the Damn Train shirts. They will collect them to you and make sure we get them up to the front. This is a question for all the board members. The enterprise initiative that Alex shared is designed to produce a path forward, but it's not the end of the story. We know this. You all talked about what some of the next steps are. Once the board makes a decision, what does implementation look like, and when do you know it's going to be successful? Or what does success look like for you?
Okay, I'll jump in. So I want to, let's see, folks go down to Olympia and lobby sometimes, right? Raise your hand, you go lobby in Olympia? Okay, yeah. When a bill gets introduced, they talk about putting it in the hopper. That's just like, it just gets introduced. They're like, now it's official. Let's assume that Thursday, when the chair releases his proposal, it is him putting in the hopper, right? And this is our chance to see what the draft is and how we can continue to articulate this yes and approach. Because not everything in a piece of legislation will be there from the ultimate second it gets dropped into the hopper. But we get get the chance to add to it the vision, the values, the next steps. And some of this can be legislated, and some of this may have to go in a companion resolution to talk about what the next steps are. So I want to make sure that folks know from I think our perspective, this conversation about how we can do more within the confined restraints that we have for this 20-year plan, we can articulate a broader, bigger vision of what is possible and our commitment to do more if we have that and we use the revenue, and we deploy new financing tools, and we commit, and we direct staff to advanced design. Those are all things that the board can do that are in addition to the legislation and should be called out to the extent possible, to the fullest extent possible, and then articulated as well, I think, in a companion resolution or ideally within the legislation. So think of Thursday as the bill being introduced into the hopper, and then an opportunity for us to continue to lift up the pieces about how to make this fuller vision happen. I think ultimately we show the public that we are moving forward when we deliver. As the mayor talked about, making sure that we advance momentum in West Seattle helps the public know that we're moving sound transit commitments that they voted for into action. When they see the plan and the full commitment to design and the infill stations and the spine being committed to, that provides momentum. And then when we start moving forward with specifics that I think only create additional trust when design is authorized, I think that builds additional momentum. Now, I talked about first right of opportunity to return for businesses once transit-oriented development is in place, but I also think we should be amplifying our commitments while we build to build with locally sourced resources like the recycled steel at Nucor, like making sure that we have local priority and priority hire in place so that our communities are getting access to these good jobs, making sure people see the value of not only the trains being built and the momentum happening, but that we're really investing back into the local community and protecting those small businesses and residents as well. But I do think that when we think about how we can augment what gets introduced, my takeaway from the retreat was that it was a little bit, and Alex, you've heard this, I apologize, but a little bit unfortunate that the financing conversation was relegated or delegated to a subcommittee discussion in the afternoon instead of what got covered in front of the press. Because there you would have heard the board members talking about, yes, of course, deploy the car rental tax. Yes, of course, let's look into our debt capacity. Yes, of course, we should go back with a more full plan to the legislature that articulates what the delta is so that we can have a fuller picture for them to vote yes on the 75-year bond bill. All of the tables that I listened to at the financing table were giving the thumbs up. Now that would have been a cool takeaway from the retreat. Board is committed to additional financial tools to deliver. And I still think that can be the takeaway at the end of May if we think about how to augment this conversation over the next few weeks and really show members of the public, no matter what's in, has to be in a 20-year plan, we're committed to the yes and we're going to deliver.
Yeah, so you know, my office has already asked Sound Transit staff to prepare board action so that once we are through the enterprise initiative, we can issue permits and get shovels in the ground right away for West Seattle. So for me, because all of that construction is going to be taking place within Seattle, showing momentum moving forward means the city being the best possible partner in doing all the devils in the details work that we need to do to make that construction go as smoothly and as quickly as possible. And the city has already done a ton of work on that score. We've got a lot of awesome staff who've been working on that for a very long time. We've overhauled our permitting regime, at least partially, to make this work better, and we will continue doing that work. So for me, it's really figuring out how the city can move things along, and then it's, we're already thinking ahead to next year's legislative session and what the city's legislative agenda is going to look like, and so we're going to really be leaning into and prioritizing 75-year bonds and any other things that we can work with the legislature to do to keep the whole plan moving forward.
Yeah, so I shared a couple minutes ago what I'm heartened by with the enterprise initiative as compared to the realignment conversation of 2021. You've also heard me say that we need to have the answers from the enterprise initiative before we start doing capital reduction. There's a reality that we might not be able to accomplish that. And so what I would say is that the enterprise initiative should not end this year. We have much more work to do. Just in the little bit of the conversation about the planning money for Ballard line, we can find $2 billion of savings. We've seen that in West Seattle. Ballard is a longer line with more stops, and so I know that there are more savings than just $2 billion. And one way to show this in real time is by having a date out there for Ballard. And I know that there's not unanimous conclusions on should we put a date that's really far out there and people are upset about that, or should we just not put a date out there and give them a better date later? My answer is let's be transparent. If we have a set of funds that we can use to get towards Ballard, what does that date really, what is that date? Because from there and through the rest of the enterprise work of looking at the planning money that we've just discussed, of looking at the financial tools that Councilmember Mosqueda and both the mayor and executive have talked about, looking at our ability to go to Olympia. And I saw a state legislator walking around here, hoping that we can get your support on 75-year bonds. But when we can pass these different mechanisms, use these different levers and these tools, we're able to bring that date forward and be able to show to the public that not only is this a real number, but through our good work through the enterprise initiative that should not end this year, that should continue forward, we're able to actually make progress and deliver the project sooner.
Executive, would you like to?
I'll keep it short. What I'm going to be looking for in the chair's proposal are going to be three things that determine success for me: regionalism, advancement, all the financing. So regionalism to me means connecting the spine and delivering those stations all the way up from Everett to Tacoma. Advancement means advancing all of the projects across the board. I don't want us to leave behind, abandon, or table any voter-approved projects. So seeing them progress and move forward is going to be a must for me to define success. And finally, leaving no stone unturned in terms of finding the financing, the partnerships to get this all done.
Let's go. And we are ready to do that work after the board meeting. All right. Thank you all so much for all of your questions. We have one that is a great one to just kick us off. Will the board be choosing amongst the three proposed alternatives for the enterprise initiative, or is there room for other variation?
There is room for other variations. Yeah. As Alex likes to remind us, those are not, here are three options, choose one. They are building blocks and hypotheticals and things to inspire conversation. And so there will be different combinations that we can choose from.
And I also just want to really harp on the point that the kind of technical exercise that we are doing right now of getting the system into affordability, because there is so much work to be done once we get toward final design on these projects where we know we are going to find billions of dollars of cost savings, the fact that a part of the project does not appear in that quote-unquote affordable plan does not mean that it is being canceled or delayed or deferred, right? And so one of the things that I want to see is just a really clear plan for, as we do that work, for adding those things back into the plan. And I'm not even talking we need more revenue for this. It's just we need to get further along in the planning process, and then suddenly you're going to see more stations kind of magically come back into affordability. And so that, I think it's a really hard conceptual thing for us to wrap our minds around. But when you see the affordable plan as whatever is rolled out later this week, it's just really important to keep in mind that that is not this is all we can build.
The next question is wonky and nerdy and technical because this is Seattle. We've seen recent proposals related to automating the Ballard and West Seattle line. Is this option under consideration by Sound Transit? And if not, why?
I think when we're going through the enterprise initiative, and what we'll see later this week is, if Mayor Wilson is correct that these stations are not off the plan, that they're not off the table, then that's a good thing, that we're able to continue working within the record of decisions and within the EISs that we have in place. But the three approaches that were presented to the board, Ballard was not on any of them. And so if that's going to be the case moving forward, I've had a lot of discussions with Sound Transit staff where I say, why didn't we explore using the Burlington Northern Railroad space? Well, that takes 8 years of negotiation. Well, if we'd started it when we passed ST3, we'd be 2 years past a decision on there, right? When we're sitting in these moments of if the only urban regional center is going to be off of Link Light Rail's plan, then absolutely every option needs to come back and be scrutinized. And we'll find out where we are later this week.
And I just think a lesson that I learned from the retreat was not asking Sound Transit staff for like the technical response when something comes up. And it'd be helpful to hear, Alex, you weigh in on this question that was asked as well for clarity.
Sure. I think what I would say is that proposal about automating light rail, there are certainly things that we are actively looking at with respect to the ideas identified. I know I saw Trevor around here somewhere. There are very real issues with just the cost of delivering transit in the United States relative to other countries that I think is a sort of a policy question beyond any individual project team to address and resolve, but is a very real opportunity, not just for this region, but for the nation. We've certainly heard and are incorporating the feedback around station size. Everyone, well, not everyone, but some people in this room might know the reference to the word trapezoidal station, where we, at least at the Seattle Center Station, have found real significant cost savings. I would also say, I think, with respect to the proposal, which does assert significant cost savings and schedule savings, there's real risk with process delay. We do need approval from the Federal Transit Administration to get that draft environmental impact statement published. Changing that in such a way just carries risk. There's also, I think, real considerations around smaller stations and more frequency around the ability to expand in the future. We know from a peer region up in Vancouver, the Canada line is identified as an example of this. They're bursting at the seams, and it's not easy to grow capacity once you've set a station size. So there are very real trade-offs. We love the ideas. We want people to be engaged in this work, and also just want to be really clear about there are no easy answers here. I wish there were, because then you would all be going about your lives on a beautiful kind of summerish evening. So, thank you.
Thank you for that, Alex. Anyone else? If not, I want to move on to this question because the handwriting is immaculate and beautiful. You all should see this. Big decisions are often sticky decisions. As the saying goes, nothing is more permanent than a temporary solution. With this in mind, how is the board working to make sure the decisions and changes made today don't lock us into lock us into consequences riders will be dealing with for decades to come? Big question.
I think a major part of that is just advancing all of the designs, right? We find our biggest cost savings, as the mayor and both council members were saying, we find our biggest cost savings once we complete design and get a project shovel ready. And so I don't want to see a proposal that tables or eliminates any projects for that exact reason. We don't want to commit ourselves to a position now before we've even fully explored what cost savings we can have, before we fully explored the partnerships that are possible, before we've passed our beautiful bills in Olympia. I know the term big beautiful bill is is triggering, but Brianna, I know you're in here somewhere, Representative Thomas. So we have a lot of work to do together, and so continuing to advance design is a big part of that.
I think one of the biggest risks is that we don't connect our region because we start sacrificing and reducing in a time that we need to be expanding and moving faster, right? This comes back to all of the different sub-regions of Sound Transit have increased growth since we passed ST3. When we just look in Snohomish County, their airport needs an airport station as well as a station for Boeing employees. This was not the case in 2016. When we look at Pierce and Snohomish County, not only do we have to get to TCC, we need to keep going further down towards DuPont. These are different places, and even within there, within our entire region, there is additional need, and that's what ST4 really needs to be about. We also have a political problem, really frankly, because we have not delivered Link Light Rail to Pierce and to Everett, even though they are benefiting from Sound Transit Express. And my apologies, Councilmember Barone, but we've had the conversation of, I don't have direct bus service to Ballard right now from downtown. The last bus left at 5:45 today, right? So I see a lot of Ballard folks. I did drive because I don't have my direct bus service, so if anyone needs a ride, I've got 4 seats. With that, you know, I think that the biggest risk that we hold is, again, reducing when we need to be thinking more boldly. And for me, that risk is ending up in my grandma's position for Ballard, right? She said she wasn't going to see it in her lifetime. I thought that she was being dramatic, and it turned out to be a reality. And I don't want to see that for my community.
All right, Mayor, I think this next question is for you. Is the Chinatown International District station and location and configuration set?
No. So, yeah. I don't know if Alex wants to speak more to that, but I know we're waiting for some information back and discussion yet to be had, right?
Yeah, and I can see my colleagues in the back, so if you have questions for them, Dan Turner. But no, I'd say with the Ballard project, the board has identified a sort of locally preferred alternative that's being carried in the draft environmental impact statement. But the draft environmental impact statement is not the formal process to set the preferred alternative that then moves forward. We've been waiting for a long time to get that draft EIS published so people can comment on it. That right now the board's locally preferred alternative is CID North and South. The comment period will open soon. I would just acknowledge that the mayor's answer is technically correct. It is not officially set.
But is the name? Will we be Chinatown International District rather than International District Chinatown? Don't answer that.
All right, because this is a town hall in Seattle, have you considered raising revenue by taxing large employers in Seattle or King County to fund the gap?
I don't believe we've had that discussion, but, you know, all options are on the table if we're looking for new revenue, as far as I'm concerned.
Tax the rich.
Can I weigh in on that?
Yeah.
And I do want to thank Mayor Wilson. Folks know she was a co-author, co-conspirator, co-partner with my team, Aaron House, and I, when we were at Seattle City Council. Thanks to my colleague for your support on the Jumpstart Progressive Payroll Tax. And I just want to say that's actually a very real question about local jurisdictions being able to have authorization for payroll taxes. At the county, we do not have a payroll tax option. And I think given what we've seen with payroll taxes being a very important tool to keep the city in the black and invest in affordable housing, now over $400 million going into affordable housing combined with the housing levy, this is how we make sustainable investments in infrastructure that's desperately needed. So in addition to asking for a 75-year bond bill, I would love it if folks were asking the state legislature for additional progressive revenue tools for counties like King County so that we can continue to look at other options that don't always rely on sales tax and property tax. Thank you.
A follow-up to this, how do we plan to change the way we finance transit in the Puget Sound region and in the future? We seem to have unlimited funds for roads and interchanges, but have to fight between cities and counties for who deserves having transit.
so sorry. So sorry to jump in. Is that
No,
okay? And you may be able to speak to this better, but I just want to sort of lift up, we don't have unlimited funds for roads, especially in King
That's what I was
County.
gonna start with.
If you look at White Center, which I proudly represent along with Vashon Island, my friend and colleague, now executive, Zahilay represented Skyway, they don't have funding for roads.
I still represent Skyway.
Thank you, solidarity. It's true. And now also White Center and Vashon, yeah, all these places. But really, it is a real issue. And I think that this question is really important to lift up, that there is not a sort of competing fund source that we should be seeing between the two, right? If you ride a bus, you are also getting jostled around and bumped around on the unincorporated roads in White Center as you take the H line through White Center to get into Seattle. If you are biking in unincorporated areas, you too want a protected bike lane. If you are a pedestrian, you are lucky to not be one of the 525 people who died in the last decade in unincorporated King County because we don't have the infrastructure that's needed for pedestrians, for bikers, and for, I would say, anybody who's using the roads, including transit riders. So I would love to continue to work. I know TCC, you've done some work on this. Thank you to Transportation Choices Coalition for lifting up how this can also be a both and conversation, because we absolutely need transit and we need to make sure that our roads are protected for those who are riding around in buses and on their bicycles and walking and strolling as well.
Can I just take a moment to say how poetic that answer was?
Yeah.
You are so good. You're so good.
It's like your professionals up here.
Yeah.
All right. The next question is about cutting red tape. Has the city of Seattle considered revisiting things like fire codes to be able to design more streamlined stations and more affordable stations?
In fact, it was my bill.
Yay.
I mean, like, sorry, jump in. I mean, like, literally, the city of Seattle turned what I think was over 187, I'm looking back there, 187, 190 distinct permits into 74, right? And so there is a way where government can be in the way, and we did not reduce anyone's ability to submit comments. We just focused them into times that they could be relevant and that we are then able to move forward. So we are both streamlining government process, we are continuing to accept public feedback, but we're not letting these pieces of red tape and these programs and processes stand in our way from moving quickly. And that's why I passed the bill here in the city of Seattle. It's one that I think that our other region municipalities need to also look at, because when we have so many, if you think about every station has to have its own permit, every section of rail has to have its own permit. We are literally just doing the same thing on repeat, and when we do them in isolation, it provides all these different opportunities for delay simply because of government bureaucracy. And when we are able to package that same product into a more efficient way of doing business, we're saving time, we're saving money, and we're delivering trains faster.
So I will just add, thank you, Councilmember, for your leadership on that, and eager to continue building on that work, figuring out if we can do more, including by looking at our fire code.
All right, zooming from fire codes to things that are larger. If projects in ST3 are deferred, is there talk of a Sound Transit 4 to finish lines or even expand the system?
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
All right.
I'm just going to reiterate one more time, because I think we can't say it enough, that deferred, if people talk about deferred right now, that does not necessarily mean that we cannot build it within the budget of Sound Transit 3. It means we need to do that work to find the savings. So just want to keep saying that.
Can I jump in on that? I want to lift up the point that the mayor just made as well, because I think that a lot of us have been saying tonight, We don't want to have the takeaway be that there is anything deferred. We don't want there to be a tier 2 list. We don't want there to be an unaffordable list. We recognize that there is a 20-year plan that we have as a requirement that we have to make balance, but we're saying that balance is, that pie is not big enough, and we're not satisfied with the financing tools that we have. So if you're telling us that it doesn't fit, we're going to broaden out the pie. We're going to go to Olympia. We're going to use all these tools. We're going to invent new ones. We're going to ask our local partners to help us with this, because we don't want the outcome of this May conversation to be a deferred list. I think the point is really well taken. We do want to have a sense of timing if something is ultimately going to be delayed, but not cut, right? Not deferred indefinitely like so many of our community partners have experienced. So we want to have clarity on timelines, but we also want there to be a commitment to getting it done. And that's, I think, the difference between what the board is saying now and what the financing tool may have been in the past. We need to change the narrative and change the tools that we have to actually deliver.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I just reiterate, yeah, that commitment is really critical. I think it is very premature to say anything is deferred. I think the characterizations across the board here are accurate. I had multiple state legislators call me after this session saying that don't read the death of the 75-year bond bill as a lack of an appetite from the state legislature, right? That bill passed out of the Senate. It didn't make it out of the House, but people are hungry to pass it next year is what I'm hearing. And so just one possible tool like that, which could save the agency a lot of money in the short term to fund many other projects, is something that we should have hope about. And so we have to continue advancing the ball. It is premature to say anything is deferred, and we should absolutely leave no stone unturned in advancing all of the projects.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I'll let you all take a crack at this final question. How can transit riders most effectively advocate for completing Sound Transit 3?
I'll take a crack at it. I think first and foremost, doing what you're doing is 100% helpful. We all know that in our political world, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you all have been loud and proud, and I've seen many variations of many different t-shirts and hats, and so continuing to elevate this topic as not only for us as board members, because I think you have a lot of allies on the board, but also your state legislators, your local partners, making sure that to convey that sound transit and light rail stations are not only critical, but popular. That is something that you should continue to convey. Number two, I would say form partnerships and alliances with each other across the sub-areas and across the region. We don't want to create a narrative that people are just out for their own sub-area, right? We don't want to create a narrative that if you invest in one sub-area that you're taking away from another, or we're eliminating projects to fund other projects. That's not the narrative we want. We want the narrative of, oh my God, the Graham Street community and the Boeing Access community are all coming together to say our fates are intertwined and we want both of these. We want you all to rise up together and form those coalitions. That really helps. And number three, I think the more specificity in what you're asking for, the more helpful. If you're able to cite specific bills that you want us to pass, cite specific strategies that you want us to employ, that helps a lot. You know, build the damn trains is a great slogan, and I see somebody with like a 100-point plan being held up in front of me. That stuff really helps. The build the damn trains is a great slogan, and the additional stuff that you all are doing of being very specific of what you want us to do helps a lot as well. So thank you for doing that work.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that, and just in the interest of saying something different, I'll just say, keep riding transit, get other people to ride transit, and keep building momentum and support for transit generally. So my office is soon going to be transmitting a proposal for renewal of our Seattle transit measure that funds a lot of bus service here in Seattle and affordable transit programs, and we're going to also need all of your support to get that passed this November. So just, yeah, keep being cheerleaders for public transit.
My answer is show up. 90% of everything is showing up. It's a lot harder to not see. It's hard to not see you when you show up, right? It is. We see the numbers of emails that we get. We see the numbers of calls that we get. And when we see you, we cannot look away. So just showing up is really critical. And with that, we have a town hall on Monday at the National Nordic Museum in Ballard, starting at 6 p.m. Would love to see you there.
I would add, there's so much patience in this room, and we need to be able to deliver, right? I see Jordan Crawley in the back, who owns Alki Beach Academy, where our kiddo went in North Delaware, whose small business, family business, that is the largest childcare facility in West Seattle, is in the path of the North Delaware station, and they have said, we want light rail. We just want some answers. And I think everyone here is saying we want light rail and we want answers. We want to be part of the solution. And we need to be able to lean in and offer answers and timelines and solutions and the vision to businesses and residents and community members who've been asking for so long to how are we going to make this work. And I want to thank businesses and residents who are directly impacted and those who've been waiting and engaging for so long. As my colleague said, $30 million a month is how much we're losing if we don't take action. So the most important thing for us is to be able to have clarity after this month on how we're going to move forward and the financing tools that will be able to deliver. If anything, please hear us in that we're not pitting lines against each other, that we're not pitting stations against each other, that we are not interested in a deferred list or a tier 2 and never to happen list, that we are committed to using these financing tools and working with greater clarity. We owe that to the state legislators to actually have a comprehensive plan that we go to Olympia with to be able to show them the delta and what will be delivered if we're asking for this tool. We didn't do that as much last year because we didn't have the advanced design directive that is needed to be able to give them that clarity, to show them what the dollars would be, and then to be able to figure out with our partners, as you've been talking about, what we also might need to be able to do. So please hear us, and that we know you have been extremely patient. We owe you a plan that shows you how we're going to do this, and if you can help us in helping to clarify the narrative, we're not going to turn against each other. We're only going to build, build, build.
Executive, take us home.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to add two additional points just to build off that. The point of regionalism and working together, just hammering home the point that when we're talking about a regional system, it's a reminder that every part of the system affects every other part of the system. And so of course having a strong, resilient core helps with getting around and mobility in the edges of the system. In the last couple of years when I've been working on the Rainier Valley Safety Master Plan and making sure that we keep the Rainier Valley safe because of the at-grade station, that wasn't only because we care about the lives of people in Rainier Valley, which we do, it's my home district, but also because if 70% of the collisions are happening in this little 4-mile stretch of the system, that of course impacts reliability and frequency in every other part of the system. And so if you lead with that messaging and form alliances with your partners all across the region, that helps us on this end as well, because when we have to start making decisions about the second downtown tunnel and the cost sharing, having you as our allies in reaching out to East King County and South King County and the other counties, talking about the fact that that system and the cost sharing impacts the entire system and not just Seattle and not just North Sub area, that helps a lot. And then the last point I wanted to make that I would leave you with is I would love it if you left the heat for the board members and show nothing but gratitude for Sound Transit staff, right? They are for Alex over here. They are working their butts off. It's not every day that you hand somebody a bill and say, find me $35 billion of cost savings, right? $35 billion is more than triple King County's entire annual budget. So that's a lot of cost savings to find. So they're absolutely leaving no stone unturned. They're fighting, they're working nonstop. And so there is a lot of heat to go around, but I would say direct that heat at us and show gratitude to the Sound Transit staff. Thank you.
All right, let's give a huge round of applause to our panelists and our board members up here. Thank you, Executive Zahilay, Mayor Wilson, Councilmember Mosqueda, and Councilmember Strauss for being here and joining us.